I would just like to give you an overview of what you should be looking at for the overview project, project one. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of the tool and the requirements and the rubric that we provided you with so that you can have an idea. And I think there have been some questions that I've been receiving, and I think this would answer quite a number of the questions. So let's just holistically think about what we are doing. We have 5 projects. The first project is a planning project. And in the planning project, you need to plan a bit about how you're going to be doing your source control and all the different tasks that you're going to be doing across all the 5 projects. So it's actually a whole process of planning everything throughout the semester. And there's not like this one solution that you will have to do. Each person is individualistic, has different ideas about things. So we are not looking for one answer. As long as we can see that you have actually thought about it and that there is, enough detail in there so that we can see you really understand how much time do I have to spend per week on each project. So we say that we want you to spend 11 hours at least. That's the minimum, 11 hours a week. So when I look at your project planning, can I see that? And as we progress through the planning from project to project, we want to be seeing that you're updating your project plans and changing things as you go along, because it doesn't stay static. What you think now is not to say what will happen later on. As you start working on a project, you start understanding more about it and you can add more detail. But let me have a look at project one as an example. So you have the 5 projects, and each of them you have to read through and understand what is required. And this project is looking at the requirements, and they are, they've been given to you in a lot of detail. It's not like you have to really work out what you are doing. But basically what we are doing is we have agile project management that is incremental. We are going to do things in small tasks. And we are following Scrum, where development teams are working together, having stand-ups, retrospectives, and trying to see how they can deliver project tasks quite quickly to customers. And obviously we are not working in teams, but that the idea is that we enhance teamwork. Then we have Kanban that we are going to be using, that you have a board, and on the board you can see exactly what's going on. And this is what we are going to try and do and create in this project. Right, so throughout the module, we are going to be doing, like we've already mentioned, our 5 projects. And in each of these projects, you are going to be acquiring a number of skills, and the skills will take time. So you have to say, well, I'm going to implement, some API in Azure. It's going to take me a while, and you have to sort of plan for that. You're going to be doing training, certifications and badges. You have to plan for that. You're going to be spending time in a class, in the online classes, reading documentation, whatever it is. But you must try and get a sense of how many hours am I spending on this work? How long does it take me? Like when you've done project 1, you may find next time around in project 2, your training goes much quicker. You know what to do. Or you just work faster as you're going through the whole process, and you have a better sort of idea of estimating your time. But what we want you to do is in this project, try to get an estimate of what are the tasks that I'm going to be doing per week and per project, and what are the times that I'm going to be spending on each of these things. Right, and so what we are going to be doing is 2 things. We are going to be creating a Github repository. You can see there a Github repository for each project. In other words, 5 repositories. And then we are going to create a Github Kanban project, and that's just one, to plan and track all your work throughout the semester with submission dates and tasks and training and everything. Right, so basically you have to understand the requirements that are going to be required, functional and non-functional requirements. And, we need to apply all these things into the project. Right, so basically what we provide you with is this table, and the table is very clear. So we have a feature, and in this case, we only have two features. We have the GitHub repository and the GitHub project. Those are two things you must do. And they've been divided here very clearly. So the first thing is we need to create a repository named CPMG Overview. It's an overview project and student number. So let me go now to our GitHub. Right, so here we have GitHub. So I have logged in with my account. You can log in with any account that you wish. Remember, GitHub is a way of promoting yourself as a software developer. And this is sort of a platform where people can come and look at you and see what work you've been doing. So it's a very good thing to have a really well maintained site. Looks professional, and all the type of implementations that you have been writing and doing. I mean, I think many of you have been doing it, but we go and do it here. Basically, the first thing that we need to do is we need to actually say, I want to create a new repository, okay? And I have to now use exactly the name. Let's say my student number is something like that, okay? And this is then the name of my repository. You can give it a name. For now, I'm just going. So this is where you're going to be storing a lot of documentation and things. It's very important to have a README file. And then we need to have a git ignore. So if you're going to be using Visual Studio, then you will see there is I'm not going to choose it now, but there's a Visual Studio option. So the git ignore is essentially ignoring all those files that come with your framework that you are not touching. You know, it only really wants to manage source control in terms of what you are writing. So you create that there, and we say create repository. Right, so I've got my repository there. So basically what I've now done is I've actually, wait, no, I don't want to do that. I've actually gone and I've completed that step. I've got a repository there. And basically what I now have to do is on the repository, you have to create milestones. And then you have to create labels. We'll talk about labels now. And then you have to, you know, be able to, we've done the README. We've actually configured it to have a README file. And in the README file, there's a lot of information you have to upload. And that's basically that part of the project. So let's just quickly see, you know, if I look at my repository, this is actually, you'll see where we will be uploading code and so forth. We'll talk about that in more detail next time. But yeah, this is where I'm going to be working and uploading my code. And you'll be able to see exactly what people do here in terms of how much code they write and so forth. So basically for my project, when I click on the issues there, I can look at labels. Now, labels is how you label a task. So some tasks are bugs, some are documentation, some are enhancements, and so forth. And so what we've also asked you to is to create new labels. So you must make your own labels, and you just go and create a new label with your own color. And then milestones. And this is where you have to now remember the milestones is at least 5 milestones. That is where we have 5 submission dates. So what is a milestone? A milestone is normally some point that you reach where you actually have something tangible to say, this is what I can deliver. So your milestone that you will be creating here is also according to the submission. It's very clear what your milestones must be. You know, that is the names of the milestones, and you must create 5 of them. So each of these milestones will then show, you know, what dates we have per project that you are going to be submitting. Okay, and yeah, so this is then in your main project. You can see those are the labels that you have to create and so forth. And I think that covers everything that we have to do for the repo. Okay, so now we have our project here. So I'm just going to go and see that is my project. But then over here, I'm now going to look at, that's my repo. Now I'm going to create a new project. So this project that I'm creating here is my Kanban planning project. So I'm going to say I want to create a new project. You can create a new project in various ways. So there are templates. I can choose to make a table with all the detail here, a board with this format, a roadmap. I can also have project templates, like here's a backlog template to show here's a backlog ready in progress. There's a lot more detail than what we will do. And then features, and features show, you know, by iteration, you know, how one works. But we are just going to start with the basic table. Okay, so here we see our basic table. I can change my name of my project, and I can just call it planning demo. I can give it a short description. You can add a lot of detail here, whatever you would like to have here. Okay, so basically this is on your settings tab. I don't think there's a save option. Okay, so I'm going to go back. Okay, so basically I can now start and put in some tasks. So I know I want to do training. Of something called A. I want to do training of something called B. And I'm going to say to do A. And I've got a number of things that I want to do in my project. All right, so you can now see these are tasks. So these are all the detailed things that one wants to do in your project. So over here, you can see that I can group things. I can, I can have many various fields I want to add in here. But basically I'm just looking at my tasks at this stage. So you can see there are assignee status, but what I can say is, okay, I want labels. You can see now add labels. I want repository, I want milestones. So you can add whatever fields you want in here. So it's quite straightforward to do that. And I can give it another name. Let's call it, just for a matter of sake, we call it home. Okay, so what I can see, if I want to now assign people to do work, obviously I'm the only person in this team, so it's going to just be me. So that's not going to be such a great idea just to enter that, but you can. Okay, so here we see the status at this stage. All of these are to do. So I am at the stage where everything is to do. Okay, and there were questions of people asking about backlogs and so forth. Well, for now, let's just keep to the main ones. You can see the main ones that we have is to do, in progress, and done. If you later have a backlog, you can also add that. It's all, it all depends on what you are doing and how you are working. For our purposes at this stage, we just want to say this is what we want to do. I can now create a new board to say, well, I want to make a board. And here you can see it's now taken the same number of tasks and it's showing, okay, these ones you want to do. This is what you're busy with, and this is done. So let's say you're busy with your project. You are now busy with training. You will put training here. Okay, if you go here, you'll see now training is now in progress. And if you now have completed your training, it will go to the done. So obviously when you hand in your project, we don't want to see that all the training is, if you've got a certificate and a badge, your training should be done. It shouldn't be sitting over here. So you can see that that one has been done and those are still to do. So it's something that is an interactive live thing. It's not something you do once and you just leave it. You must actually all the time, as you are working on your work, you come back here and you do this, because this is what you'll be doing in industry. In industry, most people, most teams are working with these tools, various types of tools that do something similar. And I, suggest that you get used to it, because you are going to be using it next year if you decide to go and work. Okay, so now we give labels to tasks. Okay, so that one there, you can see it doesn't have anything there. And the reason for this is because I have not yet linked my planning to my actual repo. So I have to now say, okay, well, I have created this repo here. And each of these tasks, I could say, are going to be linked to my overview repo that I've created. And I'm only looking at the overview repo. I'm not looking at my ones for project. Remember, you have to make one. Even I have just got here one for, if I look at all my repos here, you can see there I've got wait, that's not that where I want to look. There. I've got this as my overview one, but you will be creating one for project 2 and project 3 and project 4 and project 5. So you'll need 5 of them. But for now, we are only linking these tasks to this repo. And so now I can say, well, now I've got, because remember the labels belong to the repo. So now I can say, okay, well, this is actually, and as you can see, I don't have training. So I actually have to go here and say, well, you need to add training. So I'm going here into issues, and you can see now I've actually linked up all my tasks are sitting here inside this repo that I have to do. And here I've got my labels, and I can see I want to create a new one. And if you can now create new ones for whatever, the ones that we've asked you to do. So it's quite straightforward. Okay, but let's say just for a matter of interest, let's call this one help wanted. Okay, so you'll see you label each of them, and which is very nice because it's very visual, it's very colorful. And you can later on sort things by your labels, and then you can look at your tasks in your work, and you can then understand, okay, these are the ones that are, for example, bug. If you look at, all the bugs, you can see it's a nice bright red color. You can sort it into different ways. You can make new views on labels, and yeah, you can see a lot more details. So it's a very visual thing. It helps you to really understand what is going on in your project. So here's we have reviewers, and for example, if you don't want it anymore, you can hide it or you can delete it or whatever. Here's my milestones, which I have to create. You would have had them created. I don't have them yet, but you can go and create your milestones. I've shown you where to do it. And you make a milestone, and then you can then link up your milestone, which is basically your project submission dates. You can link it up to each of your tasks so that you can then later, perhaps you want to sort it according to that. You can sort it or group it and so on. And now what you need to do also is we would like you to see, I think it's in this view here. Let's just have a look at this view, linked assessment. Like here we have, for example, the linked assessment view. You can see here, these are all the projects that have been, the actual assessments that have been created. And you can see that if I look at my portfolio of evidence, there are 12. You can set it up. And these are all the things that are linked up here. So ideally, we want you to, for example, be able to look at project 1 and all your tasks for project 1 in a view like that. And that makes it very nice. And then here we have a sprint view. And you can see your sprint view, shows, okay, here we start. Here's your first sprint, your second sprint. Also a very nice view to look at. So these ones, you can also go and set up. So I'm not going to give you all the detail on how to do that. You should be able to read a bit more. We give you the foundation, and you can then go and play around, how can I now, if I create a new field, you can see I've got a number of things here I can create it. For example, here's one called iteration. And iteration is like, task option. It starts every like 2 weeks. You can see if I save this one, you can see, well, it's going to be called iteration, that. And so you can perhaps adapt that a bit and see how you can play around with that. So investigate, look at what you have available, your time, how you're going to set up your time. Obviously, you're going to create another field. You can create as many fields as you like, and you can go and set up a field for your time. Unfortunately, it seems like you can't always add it up, but perhaps you can. You must investigate whether you can add it up so that you can see for your specific project and your weeks. Are you working 11 hours every week? That's the type of things we want to know. Right, and then the charts. So when you're looking at charts, the one that is here is the status chart. You can see I've got 4 tasks that I must do and 1 that has been done. And I can go and look at this status chart. I can change the name here. If I click on configure there, you can group it by, if you want to group it by things, or if you want to change whatever you are showing, you can play around with those things a bit. But I can add a new chart, and you can actually add 3 charts. So I can actually set another chart and another chart, configure them. But if I try to do a 4th chart, I can't. So let's go back to our project requirements. So yeah, I'm not going to go through all of this. This is very straightforward. I think I've given you enough information to be able to competently continue. You know how to link, you've shown how to link it, make sure it's named. Here you have to add those columns. You can see you've got it tells you what field types to use. Here we see the different views. We have a tabular view, and you're gonna use those fields here. There's another view called status view you must make, and there's another one called sprint view, and you have to group by sprints. And then here we have the linked assessment view, which we just showed you, and a customized one. You can make up your own one. Again, these are then all the tasks. These are all the tasks that you must then think of, all the classes, all the training, all the whatever it is you think you're going to be doing for each project. You must enter them according to your project. It must be grouped by that. And then the last chart, we've got the different project charts that you can do. So there are 3 that are free with the tool, but then we have a burn down chart we want you to do. Now, unfortunately, the burn down chart you can't do in the tool because of the, it's a free license. It doesn't support it. But what we want you to do is go and read up about what is a burn down chart. What are the parameters that are considered in this chart? How do you plot it? And look at your own dates. Your project starts on a certain date, goes until to a certain date. Plot that on a burn down chart. Do it in Excel or something. And then you can copy that into your README. So on your README, you can actually put the burn down chart. Right, so that's then basically everything for project 1. But what you now have to do is you have to say, well, let me look at project 2. Now, you don't have to worry about the detail of project 2 in terms of what's going on. But here we give you enough information to say, well, for project 2, again, what do you have to do? You have to create a repo called project 2. And you're going to continuously be updating your code there. You have to then, that's another task. You're going to create a database. You're going to do an API project. You're going to connect the API to the data source. You're going to build a customer functionality, order management, and products. And each of these things have got a lot of tasks that you're going to be doing. You're going to implement some security. You're going to be doing some cloud hosting and documentation. So basically, this is going through this project. You're going to be doing certifications. You're going to be doing some community engagement and so on. So you have to go through the whole thing and say, well, how much of this am I going to put on here? So I must actually go over here on my overview planning project. You have to add these tasks in here. So it's a question of sitting down, thinking about it, how you're going to put it in and doing it. So just make sure that you do it in sufficient detail so that we can see this student has gone and has actually spent some time on it, understands it, it makes sense. They didn't just go and put class, 1 hour, 1 hour. When you do that, I can see, well, you're not really thinking about it. But, when I can see that you understand, okay, this takes so much time, that takes so much time, and it's done nicely, it's tidy. Things like, if I look at this thing, just pull up your columns a bit. And so that when we open it, I don't have to struggle to scroll to the other side and it's untidy, and just make it look nice. Just be proud of what you do. So I think basically I've covered everything. The rubric that we will provide is available also in the resources tab. So you can basically go and look at the rubric, and you can see that everything that we've asked is then here marked in some way. You can see how the rubric's been set up. The Agile product setup is 40% of the mark. And so, you can see that if you do this right, I will put 1 there, you get this right, and you get that mark. So it's a very straightforward way of marking. And you can have a look, okay, did you create a sprint view, a status view? Did you do all these things? Did you have a customize? So everything you do, you get a mark for. Is there 11 hours per week, every week? Do you have your milestones? Was there training and classes and, just look at all the stuff. Did you plan for your POE tasks? In other words, is it there? And are you on the task level? We don't want high level things. We want to see that you are busy with actual tasks like set up a database. Are you using labels and milestones that you set up in your repository and so forth? And so these are all the Scrum implementation tasks that we give marks for. And here we see source control. So in terms of source control is your repo, your README files, all these things. And then training that you submit, and we will provide you with a form where you will submit your training. We are not giving it's not a big mark, but we will give a mark for this again in the exam. So, I mean, obviously, don't do 10 of these things. It's not necessary. You must just do what is relevant, what is needed, and what will help you. We don't want you to go and do just masses, like 10 certifications just to do them. It must be meaningful for you, and you must get something out of it, and you must be doing it in this time so that while you are, busy on the project, you do the training, you get the certification or the badge, and then it's something that you've got and you understand what you're doing. If you do the training at the end, I mean, really, what does it mean? It's just like running after marks for nothing. Okay, so that's basically all from my side. I think it should be sufficient. So that what we will do next week is, this is just basically then getting the planning going. And I think it's very straightforward and it's not difficult. It's just a question of spending time on it and making sure you do it properly. And then we will next time look at how we are using the source control, for when you are going to be starting with actual coding and so forth. But for now, we are not really writing code and doing source control at this point in time. All that you really have to understand is your branching strategy, that you have to now think of how you are going to do a branching strategy for your project, but that will be discussed. Right, so that's been all from my side, and good luck with the project. Enjoy it. I hope it goes well.